Hi, this is Michael Waits recording live from Money 2020 Asia 2025 in Bangkok. Thank you for joining us for this special edition of Insurance for the New Possible, where we discuss the future of finance, technology, and insurance. We are joined today by Digbijoy Shukla, CEO of iCar Asia and Wapcar-Autofun, part of the Carsome Group. Thank you so much for joining us today at Money 2020 Asia 2025. How are you doing?
Great, and thanks for having me here, Michael, and the Chubb team.
It is my complete pleasure. Let's dive right into this. How has consumer trust evolved in the digital used car marketplace, and what role does transparency and content play?
I think that's a great question.
Thank you.
So when we look at especially Carsome's journey over the last 10 years, by the way, we complete 10 years.
Wow,
this
congratulations.
year. Yeah. When the founders started the company, when they looked around their own personal experience of buying sort of a used car, they faced a lot of challenges in terms of getting the right car, what's under the hood, am I buying a lemon, what kind of car
you don't know,
am I?
right?
You just
You
don't
didn't
know.
know. Yeah.
You really don't know.
Right.
And Carsome was started out of that pain point of the founders to really look at building a company which could exhibit trust and transparency for the end customer. And how we do it is we do it in a few ways.
Tell me.
The first one is every car that Carsome brings into its inventory, there's 175 inspection that we do of the car. So it's an external inspection, it's an internal inspection. We look at under the hood, we look at all the gadgets, we look at the electricals, and it's done in a combination of using a lot of sort of tools as well as trained manpower, which we've done. So every car that comes into the Carsome ecosystem undergoes 175 inspection point.
Wow.
Once the inspections comes out clearly of maybe there's some defects or there's some challenges, then it's refurbished. So the car becomes as good as new in a way.
In a way,
so
right?
It's certified by Carsome.
Okay.
And to build further trust and transparency, we are so confident of the car that we offer a 5-day money-back guarantee. We offer a 1-year warranty on it. And so that's how we build the trust and transparency just on the consumer side.
Yeah, it's super important. I want to ask you this. The used car market, at least in Thailand, I know because I've lived here for almost 15 years, but it's probably similar in Malaysia, Indonesia, and other places in this region. It was super fragmented, right? Some family owned a couple of different places, and some of them are great, some of them are bad, right? But how was the original, what was the original idea? Was it to buy some of those places to acquire inventory and then do the things you were talking about? And has that changed over time? Because I can't believe you started on day one with 175 checks. That's just awesome. But how did that develop over time?
No, absolutely. So we actually started with our wholesale business first. So when I say wholesale business, is we used to look at acquiring the inventory from the market.
Okay.
So these could be new car dealers, sales agents, who are looking, if the customer's coming to a new car dealership, they're looking to obviously trade up to a new car, but how do they dispose their old
car? Yeah.
So that was one channel for us. We went to auction houses, we went to other dealers, etc. We went to private sellers. So a large majority of our inventory actually comes from private sellers who want to sell their car to us.
Right.
So we sourced all the cars, and then we started looking at, what were the sort of common defects? What are the common challenges? So for example, in Malaysia, just to give you a more localized context, there's typically a lot of flooding that happens.
Okay.
So there's a lot of accidental damage or flooding damage that happens. So those are first things that we looked at the market nuances and said, the first thing the customer wants to know, I hope there's no flood or accident.
Right.
An accident,
no flooding accident. Yes, the
at,
water just comes up into the axles and stuff like that. And it just damages it. Yeah.
So we really, when you say look under the hood, not just under the engine hood, but really look under the chassis.
Under the car, yeah.
Under the car and see, has there really been any flood damage? And some of these things don't really get picked up when you're buying a used car.
Yeah, it's not obvious.
It's not obvious.
Right.
So when you go in, building on that in terms of the sentiment and the nuances and the behavior and then we started layering it more and more. We also looked at, obviously, the new OEMs, what are the standards they do in terms of the parts, etc. And that's when we started building. So it didn't start off 175. We kind of refined it over time.
Right.
And first we were doing external, now we do internal, external, under the chassis, really a very comprehensive view. And the best part, Michael, if you go today to the Carsome website, every car that is listed will have a detailed inspection report there on the website.
So you get to know what was wrong and what was
Absolutely.
fixed.
Absolutely. So you
Okay.
get to know all the benchmarks, all the parameters. You can go to any Carson website, click on a car listings, and you'll see the full inspection report that is there. So the hope is that with that transparency, the buyer or the customer knows what he's actually buying.
I like it. Can we talk a little bit more about the fragmentation, if you don't mind?
Yes.
So in the old days, it was so fragmented that you wouldn't even know, like no individual dealer could be the price setter, right? No individual used car seller could be the price setter because the guy next to him could be undercutting him, overcutting him, or whatever. But now that you've been at this for 10 years, so congratulations again, at some point, you must have so much inventory because part of the win here is consolidation, right? Owning a lot of that market, which gives you then control over price. Has that been, and that's got to be very beneficial for customers because that's part of the transparency thing as well. Has that happened too?
Yes. So consolidation at some level.
Okay.
Absolutely. So when we look at so we have two businesses. One is the wholesale side where we acquire the inventory and then we put it on auction platform where we enable dealers to buy the car from us.
Right.
So that's what we call is a wholesale business or the C2B business in a way.
I understand.
And the second business, of course, is B2C, which is our retail business,
Right.
where we do the certified, car inventory. So I would argue, given our channels and the sort of the penetration, especially in Malaysia, because we've been operating for 10 plus years, I think on the wholesale side, we do have quite a volume of inventory that we deal with every month. Even on the retail side, given the customer trust is now growing in the Carson brand, our sales have been growing year on year, and it's a very healthy number. And I would argue this is despite cutting marketing expense. So that shows you the brand power.
Right.
So we cut our marketing expense by a considerable amount
Right.
just to optimize costs, etc. But yet our car sales, etc., actually grew.
Right.
So that actually shows you the brand strength.
Right.
Do we have pricing power? And what you mentioned, I mean, it's a combination because it still is a very large market.
Sure.
But I think what we bring to the table is any customer who's coming there knows what he's buying.
Exactly.
So
that's kind of what I meant. Is like, because you could go from dealer A to dealer B in the old days, you don't know even what the price should be.
Absolutely.
But now you know because you know in confidence that you guys know what the price is supposed
Absolutely.
to be.
And our pricing is very transparent.
Right.
So as a customer, that's another one of the pain points. You sometimes go, to a dealer and they quote certain price and they start layering and adding on a lot of other stuff.
Sure.
Our belief is be very transparent in the pricing. So this is what you're getting. This is the car condition that you're getting, and this is what you're going to pay for. So there's no ifs
none of
and
this
buts,
like,
there's no deviations, etc.
Right.
Because we believe the customer journey is paramount.
I get it. What are you seeing on the flip side? So now I know what you guys are doing, but what are you seeing on the flip side? Like what kind of behavioral shifts do you see in auto buyers, right, across Southeast Asia, particularly as they research, finance, and even cover their cars with insurance?
No, absolutely. I mean, over the journey, there's very clear trends in terms of, if you look at the journey, it's discovery. So when you look at discovery,
Right.
there's clearly customers are doing most of the research online. So various studies, if you look at...
So they won't even go to a dealer.
No.
They'll just look online.
They first want to look at online. And especially when it comes to used cars, because a lot of the used cars, the brands are out there.
Right.
And for example, we do multi-brands, as a used car. So they'll do their research online. So the whole discovery and the research piece, comes in a lot of the online part. Now what we're seeing, not only are they doing the research, so they look at car reviews, they look at maintenance tips, they do model specs comparisons, etc. But they're also now looking at other products online. So, okay, can I get the right insurance?
Right.
Can I get the right financing? Which financing is best for me? Which insurance is best for me? Through our websites, we also own a content platform called Wapcar-Autofun. Wapcar in Malaysia and Autofun in the other countries.
I love the name, by the way.
Yes.
Sorry, Autofun.
Absolutely.
That's good.
It's like to create fun.
Of course.
Auto should be fun.
I think so. I'm smiling. I love cars.
Absolutely, because it should not be complex.
No.
Buying a car
Should
should
be
not
simple.
be it should be simple. It should be fun. It should be almost edu-entertainment in a way.
In a way, right?
Yeah, it should be.
Yeah.
And so what we did was, now of course everybody does it, but we built certain calculators on Wapcar-Autofun. So you can actually calculate, okay, basis your income, what is the loan installment, how much EMI you're paying. We want to also build insurance calculators, in the future. So for example, if this is the amount that you're looking at,
Right.
how much should the premium be? How much should the coverage be? So all these tools are becoming more and more online. So the customer, before he goes into a dealership or comes to Carson, already has a clear view of which car he's buying, why he's buying that car, what are the specs of the car, what are the other ancillary products that best fit for that particular car that he's buying.
So what kind of feedback are you getting from customers? And I'm sure this has changed over time as well, right? Because you didn't just wake up one day and think we need to add this feature. What is the feedback loop like for your customers throughout the region so that you kind of know like what they need as their next step, the next thing that they want you guys to build?
No, absolutely. So one of the biggest feedbacks, of course, I already talked about trust and transparency, having that peace of mind.
Yeah.
And then we added stuff like, money back guarantee, a 5-day money back guarantee, a 1-year warranty, etc. So those are on the transaction side.
Right.
But one of the key pain points is about financing.
Yeah. How am I going to pay for this thing?
How am I going to pay for this thing?
Right.
So of course we have very strategic partnerships with all the leading banks in all the regions, where we offer financing options for, our car buyers. But Carsome itself also underwrites financing.
So I was going to ask you that. Sorry,
Yes.
Go ahead, because this is really interesting. I mean, I remember when I was much younger, I learned that like most of the car companies, the new car companies, made most of their money from the financing. Like the General Motors Acceptance Corporation, Ford Motor Credit, that's where they made a ton of their money. And that the spread on the car itself was thinner. But anyway, please go ahead.
So I think monetization aside, I think the key thing that we observed was that while financing is available, some part of the population or customers did not have access to that financing. And we've sort of built a little bit of our own proprietary methodology in terms of evaluating not just the credit worthiness of the borrower, but given all the data that we have, we also have full data around the underlying asset, which is the collateral, which is the car, right? So think about it. When you merge those two together, you can have very, very interesting ways of financing because you're not just looking at creditworthiness of the borrower, but you're also looking at the underlying asset, which is collateral. So we have an acquired entity in Singapore called Car Times. So there's Car Times Capital and Carsome Capital in Malaysia. So
Right.
Singapore, Malaysia is where we operate out of. We've actually done very, very well. We've disposed, I won't quote exact numbers, but pretty much millions of dollars in terms of both dealer financing, hire purchase financing, which is for the end customers, and of course, insurance distribution. But the interesting part is that recently, as a validation for Carsome Capital sort of proven work and the kind of traction we got,
Right.
we just closed a joint venture with Jax, which is a leading Japanese consumer credit company under the
got it.
NVFG group.
So what do they do? They provide funding for some of the financing.
Yes. So
right?
we just announced the joint venture. in fact,
Congratulations.
two weeks ago, and
Good
that was
stuff.
a great validation testimony,
Yeah.
for our Carsome Capital business in terms of the work that we've done.
Are there fundamental demographic changes taking place as well in the region where, let's say 5 years ago, 7 years ago, even a company like the Japanese company you just mentioned wouldn't have allocated capital to this because the understanding of credit in the region wasn't as strong as it is today, and the tools hadn't been built yet to do that. But now that the region itself is actually getting wealthier, GDP per capita is getting higher, that the risk return metrics are now in favor of, hey, we should actually be in that market, lending that money out and helping Carsome Capital do that business. Are the demos changing around that as well here?
Demographics are definitely changing. So we all know the markets: Malaysia, Thailand, Indonesia, growing markets, going more and more towards digital. I think that shift is already happening.
Yeah, for sure.
Consumers are becoming more and more aware of the different financing options. There's a lot of interesting things that are happening both on finance and insurance. Where you talk about embedded finance, you talk about embedded insurance and things like that. So I think the consumer is definitely becoming more aware. With the whole ability to certify used cars, we believe also we're opening up a larger market. So what I mean by that is consumers earlier would have a choice of only buying a new car or trusting, going and buying
or
maybe a used car, but
right.
they were not. Now what's happening, because a used car is a certified car, you're getting maximum bang for the buck. And that is kind of opening up the market a lot more, where customers who were, let's say in Indonesia, a lot of them, as we know, mostly on two-wheelers, we see a lot of customers now graduating to cars because now they can buy a quality used car, which will not break down, etc., at a great price. So the value benefit is coming very nicely now.
I think the natural follow-up to that is, if you're going, let's just use Indonesia as an example, right? If you're going from a two-wheeler, but you start to financially be doing a little bit better, so you say, I don't want to have that anymore. I want to have a car, but I can't afford a new car because I'm not there yet. But this one is certified. and I can feel really confident when I buy it, and I can get reasonable financing in a way that makes sense for my budget.
Absolutely.
Do you see that moving then at some point to, you know what, in 7 years or 9 years, now I can afford, now a whole new cohort of people can afford new cars as opposed to just used cars. Do you see that trend happening as well?
No, absolutely. So I think there's clear transition from, let's say, two-wheelers to, let's say, used cars.
Yep.
And over time, hey, they may even upgrade to a, further a new car or a better used car.
A better used car, yeah.
Right?
Right.
So because we also see that. We see a lot
That's
of our
interesting.
customers.
So I buy brand A because that's what I can afford today. I'm still going to stay used, but I'm going to buy brand C because that's cooler or whatever it is, yeah?
Absolutely. So we actually see a lot of our customers coming back. And we also, because we do a lot of trade-ins, so if our existing customer, let's say he's bought a Myvi in Malaysia, tomorrow he wants to upgrade to a Proton X70, both are local brands, as you know, and they say, hey, after 2 years, I want to trade it up. Now, that's another beautiful part that we do for customers. We offer very clear, transparent pricing of what your current value of your car is today. And Michael, I want to bring in a very interesting thing that we do on our websites.
Please.
So every car owner, including yourself, always wants to know what is my current valuation of the car.
What's it worth? Before I decide if I want to trade it in or do whatever, right?
Whether I want to buy a new car or a new certified car.
I wonder what it's worth.
What's it worth?
Yeah.
So we have a full automated transparent system. You put in your brand here, variant engine transmission on a website or the app. Automatically, you get a valuation of the car. That's powered by, and of course, I say it very simply, but behind, of course, there's a lot of data analytics, AI that goes into merging all our transaction data. We own the largest marketplaces,
right?
Classified marketplaces, which is iCar Asia. So data from all these auction houses, our own wholesale business, and that powers the current valuation that you own.
Right.
Now, the magic doesn't stop here. Once Michael gets to know, let's say, what my car is worth, and of course, you drive a Mercedes or BMW, knowing you. But let's say you drive a BMW and you know the value of the car. That car gets added to your garage in the app.
So kind of like the online e-commerce, like general e-commerce companies do. They take that and put it into your bag, yeah?
Absolutely.
But you have a garage instead of a bag.
Now the magic starts more. Now what happens is, because now I know which car Michael drives,
right?
Because it's in the garage on the app.
I got it.
I can push to you customized content. You drive a BMW. What are the maintenance tips of BMW? So you want spare parts? I can push spare parts.
Okay.
You want after-sale service for BMW? I can push that. And insurance. Let's not forget that.
Yeah.
We also capture month and year of insurance. So we know, for example, when is your insurance expiring? And we can push the right insurance product.
So do you also know, which makes you a great partner, right? But do you also know, let's say I have this car, you know when I bought it, because I bought it from Carson, right? It's in my garage, so you know all the details around it. You know I keep pretty good care of it because I haven't serviced it with you. But you also know if some guy in like a peripheral town is searching for my car. So you can also create personalized content for me going, would you be willing to sell your car at this price to this guy and we'll help you upgrade to a new thing? Is that something you guys do as well?
Absolutely. So we push relevant things to the owner,
right,
who's added their car to the garage, because we know you're checking your price. And if we feel, based on the demand trends, that, for example, you're driving a BMW and it's in hot demand and the price is going up, we can push a notification to you, hey, I think it's the right time to sell. The other thing, this doesn't just restrain itself to people buying custom cars. If I look at the...
Sure, because you have all the market data.
We have the marketplace also.
Right.
So with our acquisition of iCar Asia in 2022, we own the largest classified marketplaces, which is CarList in Malaysia, 1-2Car in Thailand. Since you've been in Thailand, you would have a 1-2Car. That's owned by us. We have AutoSpin. We have Mobile 123, CarMoody Indonesia. The garage feature is also in these platforms, which means even if you've not bought a car from Carsome,
but you still know what car I have.
We still know what car you have. We also know what cars you're browsing for.
Right.
So in a way, we're completing the entire sort of your automotive journey, and we can push in relevant products to you. So you don't just come to our apps or a platform when you're looking to buy and sell a car. Even while you're owning a car, we have all the sort of features to keep you engaged and push to you relevant products, services, and content.
That is really brilliant. I was going to ask a whole thing on content, but we just had the whole conversation. We didn't do all of it, but we did some of it. I I want to talk a little bit before I let you go about electric vehicles. It could just be your opinion, but I have this whole concept of like being a mobility data information platform, almost in a way replacing the mobile phone that you have, right? So if I told you 15 years ago that you'd have something in your pocket that had all the world's data on it, you would have said I was crazy, right? And we had this offline conversation about my iPod. But how do you see the car changing, maybe just yourself, into being this data mobility platform on the EV side, which feels somehow more natural than it is on the combustion engine side? Does that make sense?
Yeah. So I think in these markets, we all know that, especially in the last 2 years, whether you look at EV as a percentage of sales, the penetration, the adoption in all the markets is going up. In the fullness of time, we expect obviously a lot more penetration of EVs coming in in all the markets that we operate in. I think this is my personal take on it. I think the whole concept which you kind of alluded to is really the connected car.
Yeah.
Right. So it's really a kind of a experience where the car is actually connected and
Constantly.
Right.
You don't have to put your phone into it. It's got its own 5G chip in it. It's just connected.
Yeah.
It's producing data constantly. It's sending it out if you want
Absolutely.
or not. Yeah. Sorry.
And
go ahead.
I think some of the EV brands have taken a quantum leap in terms of,
For sure.
getting that data, even connecting to after sales. So for preventive maintenance, preventive servicing.
Yeah.
There are things that you can do when a car is connected, because the car practically knows, okay, on your way to office, you stop by the Starbucks. Can the car itself order and get your Starbucks coffee? So you just drive through and pick up your coffee and go through. So over time, I think it's a lot of the preventive maintenance and the internal readings of the engines are coming through. That also has a pretty interesting role to play in insurance.
I was just going to say UBI, right? Because it knows when I'm driving, it knows when I'm not driving, it knows what my driving style or skills
Absolutely.
are or aren't, right? Yeah.
And the way I think in the fullness of time, I think it's going to get extremely exciting, because the car literally becomes your fulcrum. Because you think about it, especially in the markets that we operate in.
Sure.
You spend a lot of time in your car.
right. Whether you're living in Jakarta or in KL or in Bangkok or even in Singapore, right?
Even in Malaysia.
In Malaysia,
KL,
yeah.
I mean,
KL,
there's a significant amount of traffic.
Right.
So you do spend a considerable amount of time, in the car.
And that's why I see that. So tell me if you think a second order, because this is something I've been thinking about for a long time, right? If everybody's car is now connected, I'm just curious, like, what does that do for throughput, system latency, and like cell phone towers and stuff like that? Because that's what they're going to connect to, right? So all that's going to become, I see people like watching movies in their car, doing stock transactions in their car, buying insurance in their car, all this stuff. Is that something you think about as well?
Oh boy, that's really looking at a crystal ball into the future. But I think there is going to be a lot more opportunities. Yeah. I don't know. I don't want the driver to watch a movie in the car while he's driving.
I mean the people in the back. I wasn't talking about the driver.
But so I think there is going to be a lot of data consumption and data. And this I think comes from my own personal background with the cloud. I think we're going to have a lot more compute at the edge.
I agree.
So a lot of I don't necessarily all that data going up to the cloud necessarily.
Yeah.
It could be compute at the edge, right? So with connected cars, it'll be literally, if you look at fullness of time, and this is not really my personal opinion since you asked me, and if I put a crystal ball on this, it could be, literally computing on the edge. So that means all the data and everything is getting processed at maybe the car level.
Right, at the car level.
And that could be really futuristic. And some
really
parts is already happening.
Yeah.
We see that in some markets. We see with some manufacturers already kind of doing that.
Yeah.
And that will enable faster processing of data, and that will enable a lot more. So I think the problems of latency and stuff like that, and if you look at AI and the way it's sort of changing every day, in the fullness of times, a lot of those issues will also kind of go away.
Okay, I'm going to let you go. Digbijoy Shukla, CEO of iCar Asia and Wapcar-Autofun, part of the Carson Group. Thank you so much for doing this today. We could have gone on for hours on this.
Thank you so much for having me. Really enjoyed the conversation.
My pleasure.